Okay, we are set.
Yes, just started recording. And I'm just making Scott the host. Okay, all right. Have a good meeting, guys.
Thanks.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. We call this meeting to order. And we'll start off with roll call. UV Stewart, I'm here.
Scott Forster here.
Dan Grow here.
Justin Hubbard here.
Alize Scott here.
Matt Mashajic here.
Roberts here. Well, sorry, Matt.
It's all good. If you like alphabetical order.
Kim Knight here.
Dodie McIntyre here.
Kayla Crosby.
I have a question. Is there anyone that's because we have 12 named to the commission. Is there anyone from the commission that's not in attendance right now?
Yes, isn't it?
Chris, right?
Chris.
And Chris has been the last couple commission meetings. So do we know if he's still interested in being a part of the commission?
I saw him at a Jackals game, correct, Kayla? He was working the tickets. Yes, he's still interested. And last Friday, he was trying to get on the Zoom. He got his weeks mixed up. He was selling tickets, I believe, for Kayla and trying to go in his car to get on the Zoom. He, correct me if I'm wrong, but did he get a job out of state? And so he was hoping to be at this meeting. I guess he's working part-time in Ohio. So which is keeping him. At least that's what I got a brief snippet before the Jackals game.
I haven't heard anything.
Yeah. Yeah, that was just, he was hoping to make this meeting. I'm surprised to not see him, but maybe he had to work.
Billy's the other one.
Right.
Yep.
He's been on, but he's been on a little late sometime.
Yeah, I think Billy will be coming.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll keep an eye on the waiting room and see if anybody shows up and just let them in when they get here.
I believe everyone has called to the roll. Are there any public comments?
Yeah, I have one that I'll read. To the Human Rights Commission, City of Jamestown. On behalf of the JPS Mascot Petition Task Force, an initiative of the Jamestown Justice Coalition, I would like to thank the members of this commission for committing their time and energy to helping advocate for our community's needs and for providing a bridge of communication between us and our elected officials in government. In June of 2020, we started a petition to change the name of the Jamestown Public Schools sports teams and remove any cultural insensitivity imagery from district schools, merchandise, etc. With at least 1,000 supporters of the petition and the generous support of our neighbors on the Seneca Nation, we are asking the Human Rights Commission to issue a public statement endorsing a change of the name Jamestown Red Raiders as soon as possible. Our discourse with the JPS Superintendent, Dr. Kevin Whitaker, has been productive and encouraging, but any decision to change the name will fall squarely in the hands of the committee he has gathered, comprised of students and teachers. While the commitment to removing all the offensive imagery has been promising, it is important to us that we continue advocating for the name change, since representatives of the Seneca Nation have made it clear that the name carries years of aggression and pain for them. Our research into the history of the JHS name and mascots showed evidence of a clear and undeniable decision by white administrators to parallel the previously ambiguous Red Raiders title with offensive, racist, and culturally insensitive imagery, which included not only logos and paintings, but culturally appropriated costumes and school chants. As the only commission of the City of Jamestown dedicated to pinpointing and addressing instances of injustice in our community and helping us mend racially, socially tense relationships, we ask that you encourage our public school to set an example for our students by making a public stance on this issue. It is our responsibility as a white majority community to be unwavering advocates for all Black, people of color, Native, and Indigenous folks both in and around our beautiful city. Thank you for your time and consideration. Sincerely, Autumn Dahlgren, JHS MP Task Force JJC.
That item is up for discussion later, so we're going to table that for a moment. Are there any other public comments?
There are no other public comments that we have.
Okay.
Actually, I do have two things I just want to bring up real quick that I spoke with the mayor today about. Just some food for thought. The next budgeting season is coming up around May. So if the commission has ideas for things they would like funding for next year, start brainstorming and let me know, and we can I can talk to the mayor about getting some funding for that, putting that in the budget. So I know we've discussed large get-togethers and things like that. So if you come up with something, let me know, and we can move forward with that, putting in the budget. And also just a reminder, tomorrow night starting at 7 at Jackson Taylor Park, there'll be a candlelight vigil for Vicki James. Arrive at 7. They'll be passing out candles at 7:30, and the vigil will start at 8. That's all I have.
Okay. We'll move on to our discussion items then. We have to have a discussion on our exploration groups. I think some have met and some have not met. So if there's any reports, we'll accept those now.
So last night we met with the LGBTQ exploration group. Momina was on the call with me. We had a good amount of people there and a lot of conversation, lasted about an hour and a half. Some of the items that came up, one is that there's currently no known member of the LGBTQ community on our commission. So that was something that was brought up. Two was that there are churches in the area that have been very supportive of the LGBTQ community. And then there are churches and other religious groups in the area that have not been supportive of that community. And that community doesn't feel like those are safe places for them. That the overall general attitude in the city and in our area is, they called it like a hushed, shameful tone, kind of like you can't be out in the open. For a few members there, they said that that's been very difficult for younger people. And they said that could be a big reason why a lot of our younger people, after they graduate high school, they leave and don't come back. Because even if they're not part of the LGBTQ community, they go to areas that are more open and are more proud of that community. And they say that that creates a space that's just more open and inviting for everyone. They did say that at schools right now, the treatment of LGBTQ students has actually been pretty positive, pretty good, but there's still not a lot of pride there. There's absolutely no curriculum or any instruction that's going into LGBTQ education. Now, I don't know if that's completely confirmed. We only had one parent and one teacher on the call, but it's something to look into. There's just not an overall good understanding of what the LGBTQ community is in this area. So even some of the verbiage, like what does transgender mean? A discussion about pronouns, terms like non-binary, what are gender neutral bathrooms, things like this tend to cause a big stir in our media and on social media, especially when they come up, but that these terms are not really new, that they're just new to certain people in this area, and that overall as a community, we need a better education of what these terms and what, you know, what this community, who this community is. There have been issues with discrimination in the past from the UPMC, from the hospital, but the group yesterday said that this is improving. They said that right now the treatment from JPD to the LGBTQ community is very positive, and that Sheriff Quattrone has had his deputies do sensitivity training from the Pride Center of Western New York for the last couple years, which they said is fantastic. They're still concerned about treatment of the trans community specifically from police in the area, but overall, there wasn't as much to say that was negative. There was a lot more positive. And I think that was really it. Mona, did you catch anything that I missed?
Another thing that I remember was that people who are receiving addiction treatment and things of the like are not receiving as much support, who are part of the LGBTQ community are not receiving as much support as they could. And it seems that that aspect, them being a member of the community, is kind of being ignored during their treatment at a time in their lives when they kind of need a lot of support. And that's something to think about, I guess.
And that was, I think that was specifically at UPMC.
UPMC, yep.
Right, where it was something about these people are going to seek counseling for their treatment, and when you are going through recovery, the goal now isn't really to treat the substance addiction, it's to treat the person. So kind of try to get it at the root cause. So when these things like identifying and as LGBTQ come up, that's kind of being waved to the side, which isn't addressing the whole person, which could be a big reason why they don't seek treatment.
Yeah, and Stephen also mentioned that it's also about reintegrating into society, so, or finding support groups, and you know, people of like the LGBT community aren't really finding that, because it's kind of, that aspect of their lives is kind of being ignored, like you said, and pushed to the side. So it's affecting their ability to reintegrate and socialize and kind of find recovery in that way.
Right. I think that's it. And we're going to be meeting with them once a month. And we encourage them, the group, to bring another person next time. So if we get to get some more faces, and I'll when we do that next meeting, I'll send the Zoom link to everybody here as well. So if you want to participate in that, that'd be great. And overall, it was a really, I thought it was a really positive, really fun discussion, honestly, and I learned a lot.
So at this moment, you're not meeting in person, just Zoom, right?
Yeah, it was on Zoom.
If you share that link, I'm sure we all might consider just sitting in and try to give some support.
Definitely. And another big thing right now, there's plans to have a Pride Fest in June. And the date, I believe, is going to be June 12th. And it's going to take place mostly as a piece of the public market. That's usually done on 3rd Street. And there's a whole setup for it. So the planning for that is going on right now.
We had our disability group met for the first time last week, and it was a small group, but it was a really great discussion. Dan was there as well, so let me know if I forget anything, but the primary issues that were discussed for each of them were employment in this area for people with disabilities has been incredibly challenging for each of them, and not just employment, but seeking higher education, as well as even employability and being able to pursue counseling, like life counseling, to figure out what it is that they want to do has been lacking in both of their lives. There were two individuals in particular, we had more than that there, but two that were very vocal. They also had indicated that social outlets were very limited for them, and they felt that they were kind of disproportionately hit by COVID during that time, that it was a real struggle for them. We talked about also, you know, those individuals with disabilities within the community who are confined to group homes and so on during COVID was particularly difficult for them. But the conversation, you know, they were both, I've had follow-up since from the two gentlemen who spoke the most, and one in particular is just so excited that somebody's asking him questions about how his disability is affecting his quality of life in his community. He just has been blown away by the possibility of being able to engage in conversation. But employment and social experiences were really the biggest thrust of the conversation. I think, Dan, can you think of anything else that?
Yeah, that was the major conversation. Plus, for many of these folks, dating is a huge challenge. Although I have a feeling the pandemic has made it very hard because we have the Barber Center in Erie and there's other things, so it's hard to know what's going on. So I would say lack of information at this time.
Yeah.
Connections, resources, and things like that are quite missing. So it's a very silent, hidden group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The one young man, you know, spoke very candidly about his need for a job coach to start in a position, but he really desires to have a full-time position to be able to support himself, and employers in the area are just ignorant to the process of, I don't mean that word ignorant in a judgmental way, but they don't know the process. They don't understand what a job coach does and how it benefits them for him to have a job coach to start his job, and that he won't need it forever. But he has felt very discriminated against as a result of that accommodation that's necessary for him. So all he keeps getting offered are part-time positions. That is, it's demeaning to him because he desires to work full-time and support himself. And that was a very large concern for him, and very rightfully so. So we are going to also meet monthly, and we will, we have been meeting, or we met in person. Sometimes it's kind of difficult for individuals with disabilities to be able to access all the same technology. So I think that we're going to continue to do it in person to the extent that we can.
Yeah, and in person is better for this particular group, and we do have the room to social distance, so.
And Pastor Doty, if you could send me the info on where and when you all meet, because the Justice Coalition actually has a disability visibility group. So I think that you know, I have about 10 people that would love to participate in something like that.
Yeah, that would be great. I
I had
sure.
a question.
Mhm.
By any chance, were you guys able to do a canvassing with that? And how many disabled veterans showed up?
We, so our advertisement for it was very limited for the first meeting. So it went out, we did a boost on Facebook and did a wide broadcast through Facebook to try to gain some individuals that way. And that's how we got the individuals that participated. But it is our goal to try to do more to advertise that in the future meetings, but there were none that participated.
No active veterans?
No.
Okay.
Right, only 2 people showed up, which is okay.
No, we had
That's the
3.
First,
We had 3.
right, that's true, 3.
We had one person that did participate by Zoom because she was out of town for the day. And then 2 that came in person in addition to Dan and I. We had one that was physically impaired in wheelchair bound. We had one high functioning autistic adult male. And then we had someone representing the mental health community who participated.
I've got a couple of veterans I'm going to send your way.
That would be great. I think that's an important demographic that we really need to have represented.
I wonder if you would benefit in sharing the meeting information with other people within the commission so we can kind of disseminate that. Like I know Justin posted his on like the JJC thing, and I think a lot of people would respond well to that.
Yeah, that was I didn't do that this past time just because of time and my own resources, but we will be better about that for the future.
I think just in general on that document that we have, all the exploratory groups listed, we should have the information on where and when to meet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
My particular group, are you finished, Dodie? I met with just 3 other leaders of the interfaith community. It went very well. I know the people I met with were very busy and were kind of interested in what the purpose was. So I tried my best to come up with a plan. And I think the main thing is just to be aware of who we are, like a large contact list of any faith tradition so that anyone can contact each other, possibly promoting educational events or public speaking venues or promotion of different religious faith traditions, whether they're having some kind of a celebration or educational seminar. Some of them wanted to know, which I'm not sure is possible, if the city's website could list all the faith traditions. I don't know if they do that. And that's pretty much it. And just have information regarding any human rights violations. It sounds like we're not giving specifics, but I did hear from 2 specific faith traditions that did face 2 hate crimes in the last year. So they weren't significant. One did cause property damage, and I think there was a police report. And the other was just kind of a drive-by insult. So I did mention that in the faith tradition, much like the LGBT community, I wish there was unity and love and respect amongst each other, but that's not true. So you're going to get the wide I'm not sure the word, the whole spectrum. So the people that will probably be involved in this, are going to be those who want to participate. We're not neglecting anyone. No one is saying you can't be part of it. But that's kind of where it stands. And maybe we'll have monthly meetings or meetings that are every other few months, but at least we can be aware of different things going on. This group obviously doesn't have as many needs as possibly the other ones, unless there's a violation or something. So, and it doesn't have to just include clergy. So, but it was promising because I'm new here to the community. So I did meet 2 new people, which was very good. I don't know if you have any questions for me.
Any other groups had a chance to meet?
I didn't have a chance to meet, but I did have some contact with people. I have the education group and then the youth inclusion group. And this week we had I believe, at least at my elementary school and my husband's elementary school, our staff meetings this week were all about equity, inclusivity, and diversity. And they were all forming groups within each Jamestown Public School. So I reached out to our superintendent, Dr. Kevin Whitaker, and gave him my name and asked that I could either get the notes from each group from every school, or if there was one point person from each of the groups in every school, and they could give me their concerns. Since they're meeting like in a smaller group, I don't know if then I should take one from each group or just if they could email me. I don't know what the best way to do that is, because now we're at the end of April, so I'm assuming that their first meeting would probably be May, and then school gets out at the end of June. Not that I can't contact people through email, but summertime, sometimes if I'm thinking education and teachers, paraprofessionals, people that work in the school system, maybe, taking a little break for the summer. And for the youth inclusion, I just don't, my expertise is early childhood. So like birth to age 8. I don't know if they will come, to a group. I don't know. I guess for my youth inclusion, I'm going to have to go more middle school, high school. I mean, any thoughts on this? Youth inclusion is just kind of very broad to me.
I think you should contact Betsy Robert.
Okay, at the high school.
Yep.
Okay.
She's
Yeah,
in
I knew.
Justice for All class.
Okay.
I think that aligns perfectly, and that could be a really good jumping off point.
Can you spell her last name? Do you know it? It's a funky way to spell it, isn't it?
Carter, Robert, I think it's ROE.
That's DAER or something like that. I'll look it up. It should just click up after. Okay. Because then I was thinking too, Justin, to piggyback on your LGBTQ. I've seen this in other states. I'm sure New York State has it. I don't believe that it is here in Chautauqua County, but at least how education and teachers could help, how we always wear our lanyards and our ID. I know on the other side, there would be a rainbow, to show, parents, because I teach in an elementary school, but I have plenty of families that are same-sex parents that could maybe benefit by looking to see which teacher maybe they'd feel comfortable with their child having if they had something to show. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't have the words for this. I'm just thinking of a friend of my husband's that was a counselor in Kentucky, and he had that.
Yeah.
Like you flip your badge over and there it is.
There was one thing that came up at our meeting of, I know the Jamestown Pride Committee has stickers that they put in the storefronts of local businesses. and they've been rolling those out. It's been kind of difficult with COVID. And then it was also brought up that we could do that for a number of different reasons. You know, you could have one for Black Lives Matter. You know, you could have one that recognizes teachers that speak Spanish as well, which I think would be really important.
Right.
And
Mhm.
is, you know, the same thing. So I think, you know, for a future project, either through the city or through some of our, you know, social activist groups to get
Mhm.
things out, but then to involve the schools as well. I think that's a really, that could be a really good signifier to let people know.
Right. Maybe I'll just check with our union, like NEA, and see. I would dare say they have something that you could
Probably.
do. Okay. So I will contact Betsy Robert for youth, and I think I'm going in the right direction for the education groups. Once each school in the city has their group, I will take from those groups. Does that make sense to everyone, or am I limiting myself?
Does the city still have a youth director or something?
That was Vicky's job. I think
Yes.
after she left, I don't know if they filled that, a youth services director.
There was somebody after Vicky.
Gosh, I don't know.
I don't know if there is or not. I can find out and see. if
I
there-
want to say
No.
that that's kind of like why, I mean, when she retired and all that, I think that was just one of those no money in the budget type things.
Okay. Any other groups? If not, I integrated the Black group into this. They have been working on the police reform. They've been working with city council pretty directly and been very vocal on the issues of police reform that was passed down from our governor. So at this point, the due date was in April, and we haven't had another meeting since we lost Vicky. But we are scheduled for another meeting on next week on Thursday at 6 o'clock. So I don't have anything else new to report on that issue right now, but they are very active and have been very busy working with city council.
Are there any plans? 'Cause I know Miss Vicky was the one, you know, spearheading the planning, and Alizé, I know you were part of it. So are there any plans, or someone taking over the plans for Juneteenth?
Ooh, I haven't heard anything at this point.
All right, because I knew a few months back, Alizé and I were both invited to some planning meetings. I wasn't able to go, but Alizé, you were able to, right? So I'm just wondering if there's, you know, how that can still go.
Yeah, I had attended the meeting back in January, but I haven't heard of anybody picking up the responsibility. Obviously, that was created by Vicky, run by Vicky for all of these years. But I definitely think it's something that we need to try to do, possibly not this year, but hopefully next year.
Well, there are still things we can do. I mean, last year in all of that, we were still able to have a march. So I think at the very least, we should do that again. And I think that's pretty, I think that'd be easy to put together, you know, especially since I know a certain police officer by the name of Scott Forrester that might help us out when it comes to, you know, marching from the park to City Hall.
We'll bring that forth in the meeting and see what we can come up with next week. Yeah, Vicky did to kind of preside over it. Rich was working with her for quite a while, but he's kind of out of the picture right now. And so I'll put it up for discussion and see what their thoughts are on that. Last year, the COVID kind of dampened quite a few things. So that came to a halt real quick.
Who is Vicky? I'm not sure I know who that is.
Vicky James.
And what's your position?
Well, she was on council and she had was chairman of the Juneteenth. That's the one that we're having the candlelight vigil for tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
It sounds like the groups are off to a good start. We all kind of want to support as much as we can to help continue to move things forward. So next discussion item is equity and social justice grant opportunity.
Did everybody get the email that had the kind of show the disbursement of the money that has been given by the grant so far? Just it's kind of gives you an idea how much they're giving out and to who they're giving it to. It sounds like if the commission puts in for it, there's a good chance that they'll be rewarded the money. So it came with the 1-page application, which is pretty nice because typically grants aren't just that 1 page. So I think the thing to do would be to discuss what the funds could be used for if the commission put in for it. If there's ideas for that, and then how the commission is going to go about completing the application so that we can submit it, have the mayor submit it for us. As a jumping off point, I know that in the past the commission's talked about having a gathering of all of the different groups, the groups we mentioned tonight and more groups, just a large community get together downtown or wherever we want to have it, just to give everybody exposure and a chance to meet, and that could be something that some of the money could be spent on. I think anytime there's a grant that's available, you should put in for it and find a way to spend the money.
I think we would love to have some kind of public social event. I guess the question, would COVID allow us to have it?
I think that's going to be dependent on when it is and what things are like at that time. So if the commission sends in the application, we're getting the money's given, then it's kind of, well, let's plan on doing that. And if COVID prevents something like that, there's probably smaller avenues that the commission could use the money for. Some of the exploration groups, maybe you could put it towards something with those, getting a small group of people together if that's what COVID allows. But if things open up, then I guess the possibilities are endless with it. And that would be more of a now thing. So like I mentioned earlier, if you want to have money put into the budget for next year, that would be, for 2022 events or whatever, where this grant, that if you put in for the grant and receive the grant, then it would be for 2021 and almost, immediately as soon as the funds were given.
Are we still talking about doing that culture event in the center of town? Or has that still been put on hold? I know I haven't been to the last couple meetings.
we kind of haven't really discussed it much because there's been a lot of other stuff to discuss, but that is exactly what this funding could be used for, if that's what the commission wants.
Yeah, this could be like, I would say a meet and greet at City Hall and Tracy Plaza outdoors. August or September would lend itself to better weather, social distancing.
Well, and is this funding, or would these grants be for the next year, for 22?
This one would be for just 21.
Would it be for 21? Okay.
Yep, just for immediate use.
I didn't get to look at it all the way. Is this federal funds or is this state funds?
This appears to be state funds.
So they don't operate on an October to October fiscal year budget? It's not like we have to expend it before October?
Yeah, they're just, so there's a list, when you get a chance, you can look, there's a whole list of different organizations that they're giving it to. And it's just, they have the money to give, they want to help out. So it's just, if they have it, they want to make sure they can give it to groups and people that can use it.
Right. So we could, right? I mean, I'd be happy to help work on this. I'm assuming we need this done like yesterday. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say probably as soon as possible.
Mhm.
And that way you can secure the funds sooner, faster.
Right.
But like I said, the 1-page application is pretty simple, honestly. The biggest thing is as a group, you guys are deciding on what you would potentially spend the $5,000 on if that's what the group was given.
I think that's an absolute no-brainer as far as funding activities.
Right. Like the meet and greet, things for the exploration groups, maybe like what I was talking about with Justin, if those lanyards cost money, because it's not just in school where you could wear that badge, that shows you're a safe person to talk to. I'm sure you could wear it at the SPCA or at basketball games and in church, everywhere, if we had some kind of signage. And even that's what I'm assuming in school with this equity, inclusivity, and diversity. Maybe if we purchased, posters with representation, helping out with Doty's group. Could it help give some training for those job coaches? I don't know, or at least.
I think
Awareness
first of all,
activities.
we need to entertain a motion to go for this grant.
I move to go for this grant.
I second it.
Okay, it's been moved in second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Like we go for the grant. Now, I would probably suggest that maybe we have a subgroup or something to help decide what we should spend it on.
Well, maybe we could just trust whoever wants to help. I'm assuming, Scott, you have this grant form. I mean, it's more than just this, right? Or is it just that?
That's it.
Oh, wow.
I know the ones I wrote for the YMCA were like 8 and 10 pages long and they had
That's what I.
so 1 page is amazing.
That's what I said. I said, well, where's the rest of it? And the mayor said, this is it. So, I mean, this is good.
Yeah, like if 4 of us got together, the rest of you could go on good faith that we would add what we needed to help all of us.
I'm
Unless,
all in favor for that. Whoever wants to work on that process.
God, I'll work with you. I
I
volunteer.
write grants all the time.
I write grants for the Y too, so I have no problem helping.
yeah. So I guess it's just Scott, when are you available? And we'll just hammer it out.
Yeah, we'll figure that out exactly when we're gonna sit down and do it. I mean, like I said, the majority of it is it doesn't even have to be exactly what you're gonna spend the money on, but what could you spend the money? So if there's a few of you want to get together and do it and Just these are the ideas. However, if COVID affects it, then things will change. So if you have the form there, we'll fill it out, we'll get together, or even on Zoom or whatever, we can email ideas and somebody's just we'll put it together and I'll submit it to the mayor.
I
Okay.
think while we're getting ideas, we ought to try to do something to get on the budget for the city, so we can have some kind of expense to do things, social events or whatever.
Well, that was my next question. Once the money is receipted, I assume we're gonna have to have some type of line item. We have to be on the money's got to go somewhere. It's got to go into some type of account, and there's got to be a line item and accountability for it.
Right.
Like, do we have a line item now with the city or no?
I don't know for sure. I'm assuming that they would have one, given, if the grant is given and then putting money in for the budget next year, I would assume that they would create something for that.
Okay.
So we need to, above and beyond the grant, we need to decide what level of monies we would like to ask the city for as we do our work in 2022.
Absolutely.
And that could be, we don't have, you guys don't have to do that tonight, but it's something to think about. And if you want to come up with something, and then that could be on the agenda for May's meeting, where, that could be a discussion topic of ideas. You can always fire the ideas back and forth prior to the meeting, so everybody has an idea, and then, get approximate prices for stuff and what it would cost, looking into events, and then in the May meeting, because that's about when we're going to need to submit the budget ideas, we can come up with an idea for the money.
I was gonna say it might be a good idea to have another meeting or maybe a subgroup talk about this outside of our May meeting and present it at the May meeting, because it could be a lot more extensive than just doing it at a regular HRC meeting.
I think those that are going to work on the grant, those probably the ones we should fire ideas to, and then maybe we can come to some kind of consensus for the next meeting, or have some type of direction.
So this grant could be used from the original idea we had back in November. We talked about having a big celebration with different food from different countries. That's what we're talking about. And
Music and culture and art.
yes, yeah, and then the different subgroups. That's a fantastic idea.
Scott, will
that's
you be
just-
reaching out to us that volunteered to help you with the grant then, to set up a time for a sub meeting?
Yeah, I just need to know exactly who it was, because a lot of people talked to once.
Chris Blakesley, one of them.
Me, Kelly.
And you can put me down. I assume you'll send out an email and then we'll have a meeting somewhere.
Yeah, I'll send out an email, and then, like I said, I think that you guys already have a lot of ideas for it. So I think it's just a matter of having somebody actually write it up, and we can do that. We can either meet somewhere or somebody could write it up and we can look at it and say, yep, this is accurate. But yeah, I'll send out an email, and so we can get all the ideas together, and we'll kind of go from there.
And then that same group can discuss ideas for the city budget to be proposed. So that can be part of the same conversation like Momina talked about.
Our finance subcommittee.
There you go.
That sounds great to me.
UV, I'm going to include you in that email chain too, just so you can stay in the loop with it.
Okay. All right, before we talk about this mascot, Scott, did you want to make any comment on what we discussed earlier about your position?
I just kind of wanted to address the group and just let everybody know that I'm here as a liaison for the city. You know, I can help with information back and forth and, you know, with the grant and finding stuff out. And I can be part of the discussion. I'm not going to be voting on any of the topics that come up. It's kind of for me, it's kind of a conflict of my position in the city. So just so everybody's aware, that's, you know, I'm obviously open for, I'll add to any discussion that we need, and I can help anything you need with the city, but I'm not going to be voting on certain things.
Is everyone clear with that? Okay. A JHS mascot. We've heard the reading and can feel the emotion of those who are pushing for change. How do we view it as a human rights commission?
Well, this is a group that's part of the Justice Coalition that Alize and I are leaders of. So we've been aware of their work since they started. And you know, when Autumn talks about the amount of research and work that they've done and the amount of meetings they've had with the Jamestown superintendent, and the fact that they've had meetings with the Seneca Nation, that's all completely accurate. Autumn probably knows more about the history of the use of that mascot than maybe anyone in the school district, honestly, with the amount of work that she's done. I think the fact that this district has decided to move away from the use of Native American imagery is good, but there are still a ton of uses of signage from when you enter the city and you see the logo, to the football field, to on all of the team's social media, including the football team, still there, to alumni groups on social media. The old logo is still there. So what the Seneca Nation and what this task force is asking is for there to be a name change. And what they're asking for this commission to do is to write a letter of support encouraging the district to adopt a name change.
Hey, Justin, did I hear you say that they're still using the logo though, even though the superintendent has directed that no one else use the logo?
It's still, I mean, if you look on Jamestown social media, you know, I can go on the Jamestown High School. I mean, I'll go on Facebook right now. And so Jamestown High School Facebook page still has the logo with the J and the feathers. And it has a picture with students on it. And they have, eye paint on, which will, when you associate the feathers and then you have eye paint right above it, we can see that would be considered racially insensitive towards Native American people when you associate those two things together. So yes, even though the superintendent has given that directive, it took me 5 seconds to find that logo, and it's still being used by the high school.
So my question is, and Justin, I have the ultimate love and respect for you. Is this an equal rights issue, or is this a compliance issue, a discipline issue within the school?
When it comes to the use of the logo, that seems more like a compliance issue, sure. But that's not what we're being asked. We're being asked to support a name change.
What was, because like I said, I've been out of the loop for 2 months. With COVID hitting, the department's had me working overtime nonstop. What was the feedback? Because you've been the point man for this. What has been the feedback from the superintendent on the logo change? I thought I was reading that he was leaving it up to the student body and the parents.
No, Kim, you might have some more insight on that.
Well, I'm just noticing that my 2 children ran cross country in the fall. They had, it said Jamestown, and there was a J with feathers. Then there was, and that was all brand new merchandise. But then they got a grant through Brooks, and now all of that merchandise that's coming in just has a J, green with red around the J. I know we're being encouraged, not myself because I don't own anything, Red Raider-ish, but say like gym teachers that have coached wrestling and they're just wearing their sweatshirts, and it does have the cartoonish looking image of a Red Raider, on the back, that they are not supposed to be wearing those anymore, to teach in. I want to say that I saw a few of like the high school teachers, made a point of putting it on social media that they were throwing out the old posters that maybe were in the classrooms if they had to switch to a classroom and it had Red Raider signage on it, that they were, throwing that away, and they're just pretty much going with the J. I know tonight when we went to a volleyball game, my daughter plays for Purcell, it's just blue and gold. My husband teaches at Fletcher. They're the Fletcher Falcons. So he was wearing his Fletcher t-shirt that has an F with feathers for the Fletcher Falcons. And a middle school teacher asked him, "What are you doing wearing that sweatshirt with feathers?" And he said, "This isn't," which was good. It kind of, put him back for a second, and he said, "No, we're the Fletcher Falcons. That's what this was for." It didn't have anything to do with that. She said, "Oh, okay," because my husband, who teaches at the high school, doesn't wear any of his clothes from the last 25 years that he would normally wear to teach in. So I'm assuming that it was I'm sure like a hard, there's all those feelings and pride, if they were once on that football team that went, to a championship or what have you, they're finding it hard to let go of that. But I think, oh, well, I think we have to, this is exactly what we have to get behind. Because if that was, and it just, I don't know, just think of yourself, think of your children, and if they were part of a logo, I don't know. Am I just mumbling on? I'm sorry.
So I have a question for Scott and for Justin. We're a commission, but we're not really empowered. And a lot of times for these changes to happen, you got to get the main game players involved. JPS, it doesn't answer to the city, so I assume it just answers to the state education department?
It answers to the elected Board of Education.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you think we need to get them involved? Like we as a commission need to approach the Board of Education to try to force this, not force it, but I don't think they're gonna go along willingly because people are set in their ways and they're gonna dig their heels in. Do you think we as a commission need to approach the Board of electors? The Board of Education, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think that's a good step. I think a good step might be to meet with the board. There's also a school commission that's been set up that the athletic director is the head of, that's been working on this issue. So I think us setting up a meeting with them might be a great step to take.
Because I just think the letter is just, I hate to say it, more pomp. We put our name on a letter, we send a letter in, they're gonna throw it away. No one's really gonna care. We can put it on our Facebook page that we made a stand for the Native American people, but if we're a committee about action, then I think we need to be about the action.
I totally agree with that. I will say though that at our last meeting, there was one complaint that was brought in about IDs being issued at the DMV. That complaint was reported on, I think, 3 times by the Post Journal and multiple times by other media outlets. So what we say at these meetings and the statements that we make to the public, they hold weight right now because we do have a microscope on us.
Mhm.
So I think you know, an address from us about this issue, no matter where we land on it, would go far.
Right. So I guess, do we need a motion right now to go forward with sending a letter?
I think we should have a motion to contact the Jamestown superintendent and see if we could set up a meeting with him and the committee that they set up and possibly the Board of Education. So I'll make a motion for that.
I second that motion. I think we all second it.
Mhm.
Right, we see the motion. Are you ready for the question? All in favor? Say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposers? Okay, the ayes carry it. I believe the motion was to set up meetings and so forth. I think we need to follow the meetings with a letter also. These changes are emotional and difficult, and sometimes it takes time for people to accept change. But I think as a commission, it's our duty to say something. Although we can't force them to make any changes, but we can make a lot of recommendations.
And Scott, is that your job to contact them since it's the whole committee or commission, or should I do that, or?
I mean, I think whoever, somebody from the committee can contact them and set up, I don't know how you want to do it. You can either set up a private meeting with them, or you could request him to come to a Human Rights Commission meeting.
That's what I was going to suggest, that
And
we
talk that
invite
way.
them to the next Human Rights Committee
To the next, okay.
commission meeting.
Hey, Justin, I think, in my opinion, like I said, I think you or one of us or all of us need to go, and if they do it face to face because of COVID, they may not, but I think we need to send a representative to speak on behalf of the entire commission directly to the city council board. Or not city council, the education board.
Okay, I can do that. I can contact Dr. Whitaker and get that all set up.
I mean, I think we give Dr. Whitaker the courtesy too, because it sounds like he's receptive to it. But I still think the city council needs to hear officially from a collective body, us as a collective body, that we stand behind this.
I agree.
The school board.
Well,
I'd like to put a motion forward that, and then we send Justin and whoever else wants to go to speak on behalf of the commission officially to the school board.
Well, I want to clarify this then. So are we saying that Chris, are you saying that we should be behind the recommendation for a name change, or that we need to set up a meeting to discuss it?
I don't think we need to set up a meeting. I think we need to send the representative saying we all pretty much said it. If we're going to send the letter, that means we're all behind the name change.
Well, I want to make sure that we are. So, what Chris is saying and what I've been saying is that I think we should support a full-on name change and let the school board know that. Is there anyone that opposes that?
Do you want to call it official to a vote? That way it's on record.
Definitely. So,
All right, let's take a motion then. I guess I can't make the motion, but I'll take a motion if we want to support the name change.
I would like to make the motion that we support the name change and we continue with what the Seneca Nation has asked us.
I second.
Get moved in second. Are you ready for the question? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposers? Okay, that motion is carried. So we are in support of the name change, and we are looking to send some representatives to set up a meeting to support that. And so that sounds good. Is there any other discussion needed on that issue?
Do we want to also send a letter since that's what we were asked for? Or just, if this is
Yeah.
better?
yeah, I'll do both. I'll write something up and then I'll send it out so everybody can, look it over. And I will be sending that to the school board as well as Dr. Whitaker, and I'll be giving Dr. Whitaker a call. Yeah.
Sounds good.
And when I do that, I'll be a representative of the Human Rights Commission, not a representative from the Jamestown Justice Coalition. Autumn can serve in that capacity. It's a different hat, I guess.
Well, I think that makes a statement if you've got multiple commissions and organizations approaching unified.
Right.
Sounds good. Okay, we'll move on to Real ID.
Okay, well, I'm looking at the time and it's 8:09, so I'll try to talk fast. I got some very good information from Larry Barmore, the county clerk. He was extremely helpful, knowledgeable, and told me the history of the county clerk being involved with the DMV ever since the 1930s. I won't get into all of that with you, but that the DMV is an agent of the state and it's operated by the county. So the Real ID came into be from Homeland Security because of 9/11. In his words, the feds decided that it was too easy to get a driver's license. So thus here comes the Real ID for flying. And New York State is lagging behind in this due to COVID. And there's 3 types of licenses: the standard license, the Real ID, and the enhanced license. And so for the women who felt that they were caught off guard, he said that the process is all spelled out on the DMV website. And just like I think Momina looked it up, the last one, right when we were talking about this, and it is all listed of what you need to bring with you. So I guess here's the explanation. Anyone whose name does not match on all documents must bring proof of why this is, i.e. marriage license, divorce decrees, court orders, adoption papers. This does apply mostly to women because they generally change their last name to the husband's last name when getting married, but it also applies to men who marry and change their last name to a hyphenated name containing both theirs and their partner's name, or if it's their wife's last name. It also applies to people who may have just changed their name through the court. They didn't like their name. I know, I'm thinking of my uncle who went back to our family name before it turned to Jones and Ellis Island. So he would have to show things like that. There's numerous scenarios. So I'm assuming, and I'm looking at it through just a female perspective, but then talking with others, if you're transgender and you present female, but all of your paperwork is still male, and you're going into your local DMV, that might not be a place where you first want to come out and try to explain all of that. So I think all of this paperwork will affect mostly straight females, transgender, same-sex marriages when you're taking your hyphenating names. What else was this? The bottom line he told me is right now, right or wrong, fair or unfair, the regulations are all given to us through the state by the way of the Department of Homeland Security. And we do not, nor we are allowed to make up or change the rules that we believe should be followed. Any complaints or issues should be directed to the New York State Commissioner of Motor Vehicles. And he said he would be very happy to discuss this with me further if I desired. And his goal is to just keep everyone informed. And he gets lots of calls from people that are both upset about issues at the DMV. So I just gave you the quick synopsis. We did correspond back and forth quite a bit. And like I said, Larry Barmar was very helpful. And as he reached out to me after this was in the newspaper. So I guess.
Thank you very much for
Yeah.
that. It possibly could have done a better job of communicating changes before they sprung it on people.
Correct.
Is that communication still being put out or not? So I think many people still don't understand the changes that are coming forth.
No.
So, Kim, I have a question, myself being a military man and a law enforcement officer. The federal government can make whatever restrictions or regulations they want, but it's up to the states to ratify that. Has New York State ratified this?
Yeah, I want to say, did he say we were lagging behind because of COVID? But by October 1st, the deadline is October 1st, 2021. So I am assuming the real ID.
And to clarify, this isn't like you can still get a regular license without going through all this. You just can't fly with it anymore.
Right.
So you can still get your New York State license and drive your car.
Right. And that's what he said. If it was just a simple renewal where you had your driver's license and you're just getting another driver's license, I'm just at the same level. I know with my enhanced driver's license, I didn't have to show anything. But this is, you are going to have to, if you're flying domestically, you have to have either a passport or this real ID now. And many people have come to me and said, oh, it's just easier, just get a passport. A passport is so much easier to get. But that's, which I completely understand, but that's kind of like when people say, oh, don't say anything, it'll just go away. So
also get
Are they saying, if I understand, the enhanced license isn't going to be good enough to fly anymore?
I'm looking at my notes and I don't see that. The enhanced license gets you over across.
Canada and Mexico.
Yes.
Because I was looking at the notes and what you put out there too, just because you have the license, the military requires their own DO4 identification anyhow, that they're still not, even with the enhanced license or whatever, you still need a military ID to get on that base.
Right. Yeah, it said they created the Real ID program and told all states to make their license compliant. New York State has been lagging behind due to COVID. Yeah, and New York State has 3 licenses. Real ID can be used for boarding planes and entering federal buildings and costs the same as a standard license. Enhanced also allows you to cross borders by car and costs $35 more. So enhanced, if he said by car, which I have an enhanced license, then you cannot fly domestically.
So
I
Kim,
will mention that the communication is a mess. My parents, who are elderly, both got their renewal in the mail,
Mhm.
and they applied for them, just a regular driver's license, because they didn't understand the process. So they got their license in, and my dad read on the top of his license, "Not a real ID."
Oh, yeah.
And he thought that he got scammed, and he paid for a license. He was ready to cut it up because he
Oh.
didn't think it was a real driver's license. So the communication is really poor, and it is confusing a lot of people.
And so then it's affecting elderly as well, if you're getting, yeah.
so I think what we could do is, because we have access to the city's municipal social media. So maybe if, Kim, since you have good knowledge of this, if you want to write up something that clarifies the process of applying for real ID and why it's important to have one, and then send it through and have the city post it on social media, and then the rest of us can use our channels to get it out as well. We can also put something out in the paper. We might not be able to change the process, but we could clarify it for people, like, Pastor Doty's parents.
Mm-hmm.
That's a
I
great
think-
corrective action we could take.
Before you do that, I sent out the resource list to see if we can get some different resources for the city. Moma did a really good job she got tons of information on the real ID, like all of the different like links and everything that you need, ways to get. So if you need like a birth certificate or a death certificate or marriage license, all of it's on there. We're just trying to consolidate it so that we can put it on the website. So that has been pretty much done.
Okay, great, thank you.
I'm kind of confused a little bit on this. Is this real ID supposed to supersede the normal license or the enhanced license?
Yeah, I think the real ID costs the same as your regular license, but if you're planning to fly, say you're going to Hawaii, UV, in December, you're not going to be able to fly if you don't have this real ID or a passport.
Or a passport.
I have my passport.
Okay. So I guess that's just, I don't know.
Is it me, or does it feel like this is a complete federal overreach and that we should be taking a stand for everyone, writing the state legislator and telling them, push back a little bit?
So I don't know if we can push back, but I think they need to decide which one do we actually need to have, or which one they're going to make permanent. If the real ID is going to be permanent, then make it permanent. Then we don't have to go through all this.
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't see what's the use for the enhanced one now. if
And
you got the real
that
ID.
goes back to my point of, standing up for everyone, not just cut race and color, but everyone, because I risked my life for this nation, and I risked my life for our freedoms, and I was injured for it. And for the federal government to come and say, you need this license to be able to get on an airplane is a complete overreach of federal oversight.
And I think why it came though.
What about our Spanish speaking people that can barely read in English, and they're going to go to the DMV and not understand any of this?
So how is it if we're coming to the federal government, how would it be a violation of a constitutional right?
state sovereignty, state into anything that is not incorporated in the federal government and the Constitution is reserved for the states. And
Okay.
nowhere in the Constitution does the federal government have the right to interfere in travel like that. I mean, you want to set up security checkpoints, I get it. But to require people to have this piece of card to be able to get on an airplane when you have people that barely speak English, people that may not be able to afford it.
So what you're saying is that by the federal government doing this, it's basically them saying that you're now required to have a type of federal ID.
It basically kind of is. They're going to let the states do it, but it's going to be a uniformed ID,
Right.
which is an oversight of an overreach of the federal government. The states have rights, and they don't have to go along with this. I mean, they do eventually if the federal government pushes hard enough, but my concern is for people of lower income and people that English is a second language. If it was confusing for an elderly person who speaks English, what is this going to do to our minority community?
To clarify, the real ID costs the same as the license, as getting a license. And
Okay.
I don't know much about air travel, but isn't that like all federal jurisdiction?
The airplane once it leaves the ground is, but when it's on the ground, it's up to the local municipality to police it. Jamestown Police Department or Chautauqua County Sheriff's has complete control of that municipal airport. Once the plane leaves, then it's federal.
But I guess theoretically, the argument is you can get on the plane, but it can't take off if you don't.
But it goes back to what I said earlier, the Constitution of the United States, whatever is not explicitly written in the Constitution is reserved for the states.
Mhm.
And it's nowhere in, and I'm not a white wing extremist or anything by any means, but this is just one more overreach. How are we we have Spanish people now that have a hard enough time just getting a regular license. And now we're going to throw this into there?
Oh, I don't know if we got if we're in a position to argue what should be or shouldn't be. I think the process just needs to be simplified so that we get whatever license we need to have and they have all the correct information and it is what it is, you know. They're just making it complicated, adding another license, and I don't really see much difference much more than the enhanced license. So it should be one or the other, you know.
But I think it
That's
was
just my opinion, though.
right. The whole steps of how some people don't need to show all of this documentation where others would have to, which could sometimes be very emotional. I think that, you know, when I first got the concern, it was from a woman who, which I want to say I said on our Zoom that her first husband had passed away. I want to say in the newspaper it was reported that she was divorced, and that wasn't the case. Not for anything, but so I think when she went there and it was close to the anniversary of his death, and then they're telling her, you know, you need this, this, and that, and now you have to prove all of these names. I think it just was a perfect storm. And
yeah, but I think it was
no disrespect to the women that were working at our local DMV that she made her appointment with. It just, she was so taken off guard. And this woman is, I mean, a planner, a checklist, you know, she would have all her ducks in a row. So then I think she was saying she felt that emotion. So what if, you know, like Chris was saying, you don't speak the language, and then you know, then you just, you know, when you're a type of person, which I think everyone is, you just want to do the right thing and you will go through the steps, but it just seems like there's another hurdle. There's another hurdle.
So I think I understand that, but I also understand what Chris says from another perspective. When there are things that we traditionally do that are part of the way we function within our society, when you start to impose new hurdles, that can be a way to you know, de facto discriminate against people. The thing that's making me think of is voter ID laws. So is it that much of an inconvenience? No. Is it something that, isn't completely accessible for people? Not necessarily, but what it does is it puts another hurdle into a process that doesn't necessarily need to be more difficult. So I think what Chris is saying, from what I understand, is that, by the federal government doing this, it is creating a more difficult process for people to function in our society, and therefore being an overreach.
Yes, I agree. Because what's to stop the next thing is to vote, you're gonna need this real ID.
Well, I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with that. I agree with that. I'm just saying that I think that they should communicate it better, what they required of us. That way we'll be prepared. But if they don't tell us what's going on, and then you get to the desk and you find all this stuff, yeah, there's going to be confusion. They should have communicated that better.
And I think it's worth mentioning, you, because you said that we have the real ID and the enhanced and the regular. That the enhanced, so I'm from Virginia and I never heard of the enhanced license before. That's only a thing in 5 states. And I think they're all like Canadian border states. So I think that this real ID thing is more of a thing for, I mean, it affects all of us because it's a federal thing now, but I think it was put into place for states that didn't have that option, or that had not very stringent license rules.
Right.
I don't know.
So that would really confuse people, because if you have 3 choices to drive a car, right? These are all driver's licenses,
Correct.
a regular, a real, and an enhanced, without proper information, what are you gonna pick? And then if you have a passport, so you
And
might base it on your
enhanced sounds like
income
the best
and so
one.
on.
It's not. I don't think it is. The enhanced sounds like the best license, but I don't think obviously you can't fly with it. So it's a little confusing.
And I want to say, not for, our county clerk, Larry Barmore, stated to me, it is all on the website. So I guess it is up to everyone to prepare to go and read the fine print.
And if you're a person with a disability that is unable to process and understand that information, you are disproportionately kept out of the loop.
What if
Or if you don't
English-
use the website?
What if English is your second language? So you're gonna go on an all English website and read how to get this and understand what it is?
Or you
Correct.
don't get computer or internet.
Right.
I think I
just
said it
wanted to
again,
be-
and I want to say it one more time, because I got to go here soon, get back on the road. I oppose this fully. This is discriminating. It's undercover discrimination. It may not be the intent, but that's the byproduct of what this is going to do is going to hurt minorities and English as second language and disabled people. And I think as a commission, we need to stand up against this.
Thank you. So,
Is there a motion?
Entertain the motion.
and what are we motioning? I don't know. I'm just so new to this. I just want to do what's right with everything. A
I
motion.
mean, because I'm sure at some point,
supporting
someone is gonna challenge this in court. There's no doubt in my mind.
this?
Someone will bring a lawsuit against the federal government for this. But I think we need to, at least voice our concerns to the state legislator about our concerns for our minorities, people with disabilities, English as a second language, how this is drastically going to
Elderly.
affect them.
I think we can do both. I think we can write a letter, and I think we can provide resources to people in the meantime.
Yeah.
I like that.
To be able to get what they need to drive a
Yes.
car and fly.
There you go, Momina. So now motion that.
I like that.
Yes.
I
And
like
that
that.
we write a
Agree.
letter to the state legislature, that's what you said, and to provide, use municipal, like, social media to try to provide some resources to the community on how to best obtain the documents.
If the federal government's going to go through with this and make this mandatory, then they need to provide resources to the state to make pamphlets in Spanish, so our Spanish friends and our Spanish neighbors can read and understand what this is. This shouldn't fall. If they're going to make the requirement, then they need to provide the funding to support it. And the state needs to step up and stand its ground on this.
Okay, but
I haven't-
we're entertaining a motion on this. There was a motion on the table.
I'll second it.
Motion has been moved and second. You ready for question? All in favor said aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the ayes carried that motion. So we will write the legislative arm, and we will make available what is necessary to help people to simplify this process.
Could I also suggest that perhaps at one of our public functions, we invite the DMV to come and sit at a table and explain the process to people. And if they won't, then perhaps we do have a table that, are you curious about what the real ID is? This is what you need to have to go. And I think that a large part of what we are commissioned to do is awareness and education. And I think that that would be supporting our mission.
Yeah. And I nominate Chris to write the letter to the state legislator.
Yeah, I have no problem with that.
Okay. Sounds good to me.
And I'll send it all out to you before for revisions. I'm not going to send it. And I'd like everyone to actually sign it if possible.
Okay.
Okay,
I love the fact that Chris is at this meeting.
thank you. Yeah,
Mm.
it's a whole different perspective. Thank you very much.
Well, hey, I apologize. I've been on road patrol and I've been in the jail for like since November. So it's been nonstop. With COVID, we've lost a bunch of guys.
Oh, sorry.
All right, this concludes our agenda for tonight. And I think we've had good discussion. So I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Can I bring something up really quick?
Yes.
So I think as a commission, it's a good idea if we kind of do more to educate ourselves about issues in the community and such. And something that I think would be good for us to do is Narcan training. I know MHA is providing free training for individuals and groups that they're doing it in Zoom and on Zoom, and I think they're doing it in person, but I'm not sure if they're doing that yet. And I think it would be a good thing as a commission if we did that. Either we could all do it together, or if we can't do that, we could all do it individually as well. I know some people on the commission are already trained as well.
Yeah, I'm Narcan trained from MHA. We did it through the Justice Coalition, and I have it in my car. And being, I've had friends that have died of overdoses, so I think it's a great thing for not only the commission to have, but everyone should do this. I know JPD's been carrying these around for quite some time, right, Scott?
Yeah, we've been since 2014, maybe, I think is when we all got trained and we started doing it. Yeah.
And it's totally free. So there's kind of no reason not to do it, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and what Momina, do you mind getting a hold of MHA and maybe seeing if they want to set something up?
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Could we also say go Jamestown Jackals? There's Kayla in the corner again, and she's really busting her hump with that. They were in Warren, PA last weekend. Now they're going to Erie. I apologize, we won't be there because my Maxwell's in the AAU up in Buffalo this weekend. But anything you want to say about your Jackals, Kayla?
If anyone has access to a gym in New York State, we'd still love to be back in Jamestown. And then if anyone wants to volunteer, or if there's any activities taking place in the community that the players can be a part of, let me know. We're in Erie tomorrow at 5 and Sunday at 3. at the Boys and Girls Club of Erie. And then the next 2 weekends we travel. So, but the guys are here during the week if there's anything going on. Thanks, Kim.
Yeah, well, they are a fabulous bunch of people, and Kayla, you're doing just a great job, and it just seems to really be growing. I just wish you had one home, but they're just a really great group of guys. And I might be biased to one, but that's still, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Before we adjourn, can I have a motion that we are going to do this Narcan training?
I move.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. We will do the Narcan training once that's set up. So I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
All right.
Second.
Okay, so we call this meeting to adjourn and see you next time. Have a good night.
Thank
Have a
you.
good weekend.
Good
Hi,
night.
guys.
Aye.
Right.